Leading things off, our first guest is the New York City Comptroller, and he joins us with information about the economic impact of COVID-19 and more. Speaking of such, why don't we start out with that? COVID-19, the economic impact.
Well, let me tell you, first, it's great to be on with you, but I'm going to tell you what I know people are feeling all over the Bronx, which is that this is a very hard time for families. We got a lot of folks who've been laid off from work, a lot of people who are trying to figure out how to educate their kids. This is a very difficult moment in the city, and as Comptroller, when you look at what impacts communities, you also see that impact on the city budget. We are going to we will have lost some $6 billion in tax revenue in the short term, which means we now have a $1.5 billion budget deficit in the city. So these are really mean, scary numbers. In the meantime, the stimulus package coming from Washington is shortchanging New York. It seems that they're more concerned about towns that haven't even had a case of coronavirus than they are with New York City, which is now the epicenter of the virus. So we got a lot of work to do going to Washington and saying, hey, we need our fair share.
Yeah. I mean, and I know you have the updated economic analysis forecasting a substantial reduction in New York City's tax revenues for not only this year, but next year.
Well, this is what we're in for. I mean, when you lose $6 billion, as I think we're going to lose between now and, say, June, maybe a little afterwards, and then you look at how we balance the city budget, we do have reserves, but these reserves will not carry us into the next year budget. So we do need a substantial stimulus package, or we need that money to reflect the growing crisis in New York. We need to make sure that people can pay the rent. There has to be a rent moratorium for people who are unemployed. We cannot expand our homeless capacity. And so we've got to make decisive decisions in New York City to help the working people. And I just want to say, we got to help the heroes. There are people who go and work in, there are people going to work in factories making minimum wage, places like Amazon and other places, making sure that people get their packages, their food deliveries. What about combat pay for them? Why are they stuck making $15 an hour? We should be paying them $25 an hour or more. We should be making sure that our nurses and doctors get protective gear in all our hospitals, and especially right here in the Bronx.
And that's why you have a call for action to guarantee our healthcare accessible and local child care and priority access to COVID-19 testing for all frontline workers.
We got to take care of those frontline workers. We saw after 9/11, the heroes who worked on the piles, they didn't know that they were endangering their lives. No one in the government told them, hey, wait a minute, if you work a pile, you're going to get sick and die. This is not a dissimilar situation, but this time we know something. Masks and gowns and resources, protective gear, will save the lives of the frontline workers. They must get this now.
And you got together with the Congressman Espaillat, and you rolled up your sleeves and you came out with an urgent action, right? Talk about that.
Well, we want to make sure that daycare workers are prioritized in this city. They're taking care of the most precious people we have, our children. We want to make sure, the Congressman and I, that the agencies responsible for those workers are doing everything we can for them. Look, it's all hands on deck, and we need to be strong in ensuring safety. We also have to be strong in protecting the most vulnerable in the city. You know, the wealthy and the billionaires, they have resources. They're going to be just fine. We want everyone to be safe, but we've got to make sure that the people who don't have savings, who are struggling with rent, that we just keep people, safe. You can't tell people to be indoors if there's no indoors to go to. And that is a priority for me.
And you put together a letter also, a letter talking about the resources and actions needed to protect our frontline workers?
Yes. And we issued an analysis of what that means, meaning more protective gear, more opportunities for their safety. We need to make sure and remind people that A frontline worker is somebody who's not self-quarantining at home. A frontline worker gets up at 6 in the morning, gets on a bus, then takes a train to do the hard work of governing in New York City. These are city employees. Many of them have to get to work. They're transit workers. They're nurses.
Yeah.
They are the people who have taken care of our grandparents and our children, and we cannot ignore their needs as well. That's why the million people, 20% of them are undocumented. They don't have insurance. They don't have their own resources yet. We're asking them to take care of other people in New York. So there has to be fairness here.
I just don't get it. In the greatest country in the world, Mr. Comptroller, why are we in such dire need? Why is there such a shortage in our country?
Well, the thing I would say, and we're probably going to hear about this for decades to come, our children will study this moment in time. My 8-year-old and 6.5-year-old are going to read great books and watch great documentaries about how we let down the next generation, how we didn't take care of our grandparents and parents. It starts with the clown in the White House. You know, elections matter. Sometimes elections are even about life and death, and it's certainly turning out to be that with Donald Trump. But look, New York City has always fought back. We did it in the 70s with the fiscal crisis. We did it after 9/11. We did it after Hurricane Sandy. We need strong leadership, and it's got to be all hands on deck. We're all in this together. This virus does not discriminate. This virus infects everyone. And the people who are most vulnerable are the people who took care of us, whose shoulders we stand on. And we have to do everything we can to make sure that our elders are safe and that there's adequate hospital resources. It just breaks my heart when I hear the story of the nurse who's helping patients with a garbage bag wrapped around her face.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
In this country, in this moment in New York City, where there's more wealth than we ever could have imagined. And we have to keep fighting. So as Comptroller, I'm using the numbers and the analysis as a way of saying to people, wait a minute, don't forget the nurse, don't forget the transit worker, don't forget the city workers, don't forget the people who are working today while other folks are staying home, or other people can escape the city and say go to the Hamptons. Good for you. I'm not begrudging that. But let's make sure we're taking care of the people who can't do that.
Absolutely. And we thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you. Over the years, we've been watching you doing some great work in our community. We see you out all over the place.
You and I go way back, and I can't wait to be in studio with you in the near future. Nothing would make me happy.
Yes. Please, sooner than later. I need to get out.
I know. Well, hold on. You be safe now. Tell everyone there to be safe.
Yes. In fact, how are you faring at home? You have the little ones running around?
I got the 8-year-old and 6.5-year-old. It is truly an experience, and it's look, it's tough. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
You know, I said to my wife after 8 days, I said, you know, we're not doing bad, and she said, Scott, it's only 8 days. You know? So I'm like, okay, I got that. But look, the nice thing about having the 2 little kids running around is as I run the office remotely, because our office is totally shut down for safety reasons. I did that 2 weeks ago, but like you're on the phone or doing Zoom and all this stuff. And I got to tell you, watching the 2 little ones run around gives me hope. So it keeps me motivated.
All right. New York City Comptroller, Scott M. Stringer. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, man. I'll see you soon.
Stay safe.
Bye.
All right. We'll take a break. I've got more coming up next on Open.